Hey, what's up guys? It's Coach Karina. I'm going to add in some rotation exercises to continue with the KMS warm-up that you've been working on. So there's a little bit of overlap here. The focus with this set of exercises is multisegmental rotation. So rotation in all the parts of our body that are supposed to rotate for us, including primarily the shoulders, thoracic spine, and hips. A lot of times the lower back and the knees rotate a little more than they should, and they're not really designed to do that. So what we're trying to do is provide good mobility in hip rotation, lower back stability, thoracic spine rotation, scapular shoulder blade stability, and shoulder mobility. If all that stuff works well together, we have built a phenomenal athlete and a beautiful moving human. So what we're going to work on are a few exercises standing, then we're going to go to hands and knees and a couple things on the floor. Maybe it's kind of more part of the cool down. So what we did in our KMS warm-up that we've been working on for the last couple of months, we did multi-segmental rotation with that full body turn, did a little bit of hip rotation stretching with that lunge and reach. So we're going to just kind of do a different variation of that, and we're going to add one more thing to do up in standing. So I think starting with multi-segmental rotation is still probably the best way to self-assess to get started. So we start with the arms in front and we turn, and the feet can be nice and wide when we're using this as an exercise. Back and forth like that, say 2 to 3 to each side, right? The next thing that we're going to do in standing, very similar to our hip rotation stretch that we did before. We're going to go knee to chest like this, bring it out to the side for balance, looks familiar. Bring it across out to the side to give you across the body to give you an outer hip stretch. Then you're going to shoot this foot straight back, but instead of this same side arm coming up for that anterior front sling stretch, we're going to reach the other arm up and back, still rotating toward the front leg. Maybe even pulling on that knee to give a little bit of extra rotation stretch. So rotational sling stretch. This knee still needs to stay over the ankle. When I say pull on the knee, I mean the fingers can pull on the knee, but the knee is still pulling out to the side to make it stay nice and stable in that lunge. And then you can come back up. And of course we do the same thing on the other side. So we go knee towards the chest, rotate out. The arm can reach out for balance. The knee, you're getting the hip, you're getting that external rotation stretching. Nice and stable through that balancing leg. Across for internal rotation and adduction is like pulling the leg across the body. Shoot it back, opposite arm up, and rotate the chest again toward that front leg. That one takes a little bit longer, so maybe just 1 or 2 on either side for that. Then we're doing something new here. Shoulder mobility is fairly important, so we're going to do a rotation stretch that kind of, or a movement that kind of gets all the directions that the shoulder is supposed to move, get to warmed up in those directions. It may be a little bit bothersome for some shoulders. So what we're going to start with is the arm's going to go up behind the head, the other arm's going to go up behind the body, reach out to the side again, and then switch. So from the back, we're kind of just going here like this, fingertips come toward each other, they don't need to touch, and you don't need to hold it. It's a dynamic stretch. We're looking for elevation and rotation of the shoulders at the same time. Now, if there's any problem with that, sometimes people with ongoing shoulder injuries or that are coming away from a shoulder injury still have issues with the arm rotating when it's up high over the head. So that's the case, elbows out to the side like this, fingertips on those hip pointer bones right here, and then rotate out to make a W, in to touch the hips, out to the W, shoulder blades are pulling back. So we're still working on shoulder rotation, just not with that elevation that sometimes bothers active shoulder problems. So anyone with shoulder stuff, you kind of just wave back and forth in here. Otherwise, snake arms, 3 or so on either side. Then we're gonna go down onto the floor. All of this still dynamic warm-up, getting everything loosened up and ready to rotate during the workout. All right, so here we're on our hands and knees, and we're gonna start with a series of exercises that looks very similar to our thoracic mobility screen. You're gonna start on your hands and knees, and it's fairly important that the spine be neutral here. So I'm gonna go kind of sideways so you can kind of see both things here. We're gonna start by finding neutral. So arching, rounding, arch, flatten, and then from here, the weight in the kneecaps just stays fairly even. We don't want the hips shifting back and forth. The primary goal, our intention with this exercise is thoracic mobility or rotation, so we don't want there to be a lot of shifting from side to side here. So we're in our neutral spine. We're gonna take the fingers, I'll use my left hand so you can see here. The hand is gonna go right on my lower back, maybe right kind of at the waistband. Shoulder blade pulls back and I rotate toward that lifted arm. Maybe for 3 on each side. Meanwhile, my weight-bearing arm, I'm pushing away from the floor here, making sure that this is active, trying to keep my chest pushing up and out of that shoulder, away from that hand, so that I'm not hanging on the shoulder joint. Of course, we would switch and do a bunch to the other side. Then we're gonna go to, we're gonna put the fingertips, I'm gonna switch up and use my right hand so you can see what I'm doing better. Fingertips go on the back of my head here, and I'm gonna turn that way toward my lifted arm. Still my weight-bearing shoulder, I'm pushing up and out. Rotating, so that's kind of a, so hand behind the back to start with, then hand behind the head. Lastly, we're gonna do a full reach. So you're gonna reach through, kind of as if you were gonna go into thread the needle. You're gonna reach through, still weight is even between the knees, lower spine is neutral. Reaching through here, we're gonna reach up and out to the side there. Reach across, reach up. So thoracic rotation with the hand behind the back, hand behind the head, and then that full arm reaching through. Lastly, we got a stretch that we're gonna do on the ground. Similar to a spinal twist that you've done in the past, we're just gonna add another little layer to get some thoracic rotation and shoulder chest opening in here. So you're on your back to start with. On your back to start with, say I hug my right knee in towards my chest, then I'm gonna pull it across my body for that familiar spinal twist, right? You can try to keep that right shoulder blade and arm on the ground, maybe they're reaching out to the side. So sure, this does get rotation. This is rotating this, stretching all my rotators on the outside of this hip. My thoracic spine is rotated in the opposite direction at the same time here. Now we're just gonna add a little something. I'm gonna bend my bottom leg and grab my foot. If the foot's too far away, you can grab onto the cuff of your pants, maybe put a towel or a strap around that ankle to make the arm a little longer. And then I'm gonna roll back toward that same position. Now I get to stretch the anterior part of this bottom leg, get this quad and hip flexor stretch as I'm getting my stretch of this other hip. And then of course I'm trying to roll this top shoulder down toward the floor. For me, it's still a few inches away, but we're all working on something. That one works really well toward the end of the workout. Everything else that we did today, practice in the beginning of the workout. If you're cooling down that stuff on the hands and knees, that does still work pretty well, but it's nice to have all those things in the beginning to sort of prep the body for the workout. So you have your standing full body turn, say 2 to each side. Standing hip rotation with that anterior sling stretch in that lunge position, say 2 to each side there. Maybe 3 repetitions of snake arms to either side, back and forth like so. Then down onto the hands and knees, hand behind the back, hand behind the head, and a full arm reach for trunk rotation. And then we call this stretch on the floor, we call this the Britzel, named after a guy named Brett who made it up. But because this is Kaya, we're gonna name it for Brittany, who is a yoga instructor who benefited from this a lot. So anyway, so those are the exercises for multi-segmental rotation that we're starting kind of through break, and we'll carry this into the summer also. Hit me up with any questions. The whole thing together, if you did that 2 to 3 reps of each of those exercises, shouldn't take you more than a minute or so, maybe 2, including everything at the end, and maybe just throw that Britzel stretch into the end of the workout. So let me know what you think. Hit me up with any questions. As always, tag me if you have questions, and we'll have a conversation about it. Hope it helps, ladies. Have fun.